Or not.
You must be very warm. Your long sleeves.
Not when I get back outside. All right, battery's not good on this one, but it's not going to get powered up. And you got your program on a USB?
Nope, we don't. Does anybody have a thumb drive on them? USB thumb drive?
Yeah,
Oh, wonderful. That helps.
but be careful what you put up there.
Why, you got naughty pictures?
Clothing optional, starting to sound better.
Well, depends on which program you do.
I only carry a bunch of them. I don't have every.
The other one's encrypted, so don't worry.
Mine, you don't want to look at my laptop.
Oh, God, 195.
Tell me you're taking your shoes off?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, you know, there's,
Overlay on top of those.
oh, he's got some.
Graphical interface to get in.
Next be here, guys. Well, I know Microsoft really wants you to know that. Gosh. I got a Windows 7 in home and they just won't leave you alone about 10.
And I'm
Well,
not,
there's a way to tell it to ignore that. It's a registry hack.
Yeah, I've read it, but I'm too lazy. You know, I'm just a computer nerd guy.
Yeah,
And there's
Don't
supposed to be
force it
permanent
on you after a
updates.
while.
I've upgraded 3 systems from 7, 8 to 10, and all 3 after about a 4-month period crashed. I had to reload, so I'm not so sure about that anymore. I mean, I like 10, but I'm
Well,
not
that's
so sure
good.
about
That
the
was
extra.
right.
Hopefully
oh, yes,
it'll go away
that's
someday.
down something. One of the best of John Wayne Bobbitt.
All 3 are from corrupted.
I do a fresh install. Upgrades and there's always back.
Yeah. Well, this is the Microsoft. So this is the one they're pushing.
Never take it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in trouble then.
Thanks. You're gonna do it.
Chris, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was singing out there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, Chris, did I tell you the rental on that thumb drive was another repeater?
Oh, what's that?
The rental on that
Oh, yeah.
repeater?
So for that though.
All right, we good to go?
Yep, we're good to go.
All right. Be nice to him, guys. I've been reading the forum and I don't like what I read sometimes. Be nice. He's a nice guy.
Hey!
Okay, now we can get started. Thank you for the patience. Actually, we're just about right on time, so it's going to keep loading stuff for the next 30 minutes, so just bear with me.
Were you the guy that went to the hospital?
Huh? No, that's Dennis Machenbacher, my boss. So I wasn't as bad as him, but I do have quite an early case of the flu. I'm just getting over. So yesterday I was in and out of urgent care. Actually, I went 3 times since I've been here, so it has not been fun. But yeah, that's I'm blaming Dennis K7BB for it. He brought it to California before I left. So the whole Yaesu office is sick right now. As strange turkey North Carolina strain of the flu. So, anyways, my name is Chris N0 CSW. For those of you that don't know me, I travel around to between 30 and 40 ham fests a year. So a lot of people in here, I recognize a lot of faces, and I see a lot of you around the country at the different ham fests. Orlando's probably the second largest show of the year for us, so we're really happy to be here, and especially talking about fusion. There's a few topics I'm going to cover today. We do have some new products out since the last time we were here in Orlando. I'm going to go over those products. I'm going to talk a little bit about the DR1X repeater. How many people in here own a DR1X repeater? Give me some hands. Yeah, we have a lot of them. I always have at least 5 people in a forum of 30 or more that own a repeater. How many people own a System Fusion radio? Okay, so we're making a little bit of an impact. Probably about 30 to 40% of the people in here actually own System Fusion products. Currently, it's the fastest growing digital mode in the United States. It is the highest fidelity audio in any amateur digital mode currently. Our voice wide mode actually is probably the highest audio quality out of any digital mode that's on the market right now. So there's a few things we can do as amateurs, especially with wideband capabilities that we can't do in commercial radio. We chose C4 FM because of audio quality. We want a 4-level FSK and FDMA solution, not 2-time slot TDMA, because of the amount of throughput that we can put through our data stream, and the audio quality is significantly higher. So I'm going to just kind of give everybody a quick introduction, because I saw a lot of hands that didn't come up regarding System Fusion and the products that are available out there. I'm going to compare a little bit of the technology that's currently on the market. We do compare against D-Star, because D-Star is the other amateur digital mode. There are only 2 modes on the market right now that are actually only amateur digital modes, and that is D-Star and System Fusion. All of the other digital modes you hear about, P25, Next Edge, IDAS, DMR, like Moto Turbo, those are not designed for amateur radio use. They are commercial solutions, and they can get a little bit pricey, especially with the infrastructure. I'm going to go through some features, an overview of Wires X, which for the repeater owners, I'm going to cover a little bit of information regarding internet linking and the HRI 200 connectivity to the repeater, and the process for upgrading your repeater to add that connectivity. And I'm going to introduce everybody to our System Fusion portal, which is a support portal people can go to get support and self-help. There's some user forms on there, an FAQ section, and a way to contact our customer service and sales department. After I'm done, we'll go through a Q&A. It's approximately about 1 hour of sales pain, so we'll get through it here. Current product line. We just released the XD models of our radios. The FT1 and FTM 400 were the first 2 radios that we released back in 2013 for System Fusion. The XD models, the only difference is they have an upgraded GPS in them that's a little bit more accurate, has a faster time to first fix. We released them at the same price of the FTM 400 and FT1 DRs. So they hit the market at the same price, and we closed out all the previous models for really good value. Those were the first 2 units to hit the shelf. Of course, then we came out with the DR1 repeater infrastructure to support System Fusion. We know it needs to be a wide area communication mode, so we needed to put some stuff up at some altitude. That was our answer, was the DR1X repeater. We initially released the DR1 beta unit. The beta unit was sent out to approximately 300 clubs around the United States. We also sent a couple of radios out with them. And we pulled the community for some features, and kind of did a beta program to find some bugs and test things out a bit before we came out with the DR1X, which is what you're seeing that's being deployed across the United States. So there are several thousand DR1X repeaters on the market right now. They're being installed all over the United States. There's one DR1X, at least one DR1X in each major city. We have some cities such as Minneapolis that have upwards of 10 repeaters online and on the air right now. So a lot of major metropolitan areas have multiple repeaters online, multiple bands in multiple locations. The new products that we've released since Hamcation last year, the FT991, the 100DR, and the FT2DR. The 991's our new all-mode, all-band radio. It has, in my opinion and many other people's, the best receiver out of any all-mode, all-band radio that's on the market right now. For 2 meter sideband, this radio is absolutely phenomenal. It is just absolutely phenomenal. The FTM100DR came out a little time afterwards, after the FT991. It is a single VFO version of the FTM400 with a smaller display. But it still has all the same features in it. It's still 50 watts VHF and UHF, and it still has APRS in it. It does digital as well. So it just has a single receiver in it. A lot of people don't understand that because it can dual receive by dual watch, is what the manual says, and that was kind of lost in translation between Japan and us. We would have worded it a little different, but it is a single receiver version. The FT2DR is amateur radio's first touchscreen handheld radio, and there are not too many touchscreen radios out on the market. There are no Chinese radios out there, no other manufacturers making a touchscreen handheld right now, so that's something that we kind of are pioneering right now in the amateur radio community, is a touchscreen interface. The FTM400 has a touchscreen on it as well, so these are two radios that hit the VHF, UHF market at a relatively low price that have some pretty high-end features in them. Touchscreen means a lot for amateur radio because things change, and we can't change buttons on conventional radios. But with touchscreen radios and software-based radios, we can change the firmware and add buttons and features to them later on down the road. So this is going to be something that's developing. All of these radios are firmware updatable. We're going to continue to add features to them at no cost to the consumer, and we're going to continue to progress down the road with them. So as people find things they do and they don't like about the radios, we're able to change that and push that out to you via firmware update. The HRI 200, which is the Wires X box. Little tiny box about the size of a road blaster, allows you to connect any of your Yaesu radios, or actually any conventional analog radio, into the Wires X network. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Wires X allows translation of both analog and digital, both ways. Analog nodes and conventional nodes digital nodes and conventional nodes can actually share a room together, and our Wires X servers will take digital audio and convert it back out to analog so everybody can get in there and play. That unit is plug and play with any Yaesu radio. If you want to use another manufacturer's radio, of course, we do have schematics and pinouts for the unit so you can interface it to any other type of radio. I talked a little bit about this unit already. It is both analog and digital. We use a technology called automatic mode select. All of our radios have this built into it. Automatic mode select is like hybrid, or what we call hybrid mode in commercial radios like P25 and Moto Turbo solutions, except it's geared a little bit more towards the amateur. I'll go into detail on it a little bit later, but in typical hybrid radios, you would have to actually use your channel selector to change to a conventional analog channel, where automatic mode select will automatically flip-flop back between the modes, and you can use your microphone to control it. So it's really easy to use automatic mode select, and it's more geared towards amateur use. It is a dual band radio, 5 watts, dual receive. All of our System Fusion radios except the 991 have APRS built into them. So the XDR is the new unit that we have just released, along with the FTM400 XDR. Like I said, the only difference between these radios are the GPS modules in them. All of our new radios, if people haven't noticed, in the past, Yaesu radios such as the FT7900, 8800, 8900 have only had 35 watts of UHF coming out of them, including the FT857 and 897. We went with the new transistor package. It's a little bit more heavy duty. We get 50 watts of both VHF and UHF out of all of our new models now. So the stuff we're coming out with is a lot more high power. The market has seemed to want to demand a little bit more power on the UHF side. One of the reasons for this is we knew that we were going to start populating the UHF side of the spectrum with this repeater program. People bought these repeaters, and not right away did most groups and clubs want to take down their big 2-meter machine and throw something in that hadn't been out on the market for too long. So we saw a lot of coordination spikes in UHF coordination. So we put the power in there on the UHF side to help support that. That was kind of a pre-planned thing. The FTM400 DRXDR does have a 64K color touchscreen. It's a very nice touchscreen. They're very durable. We rarely, actually I have not even seen a unit come back with a dead pixel. The only thing I've seen from them are shipping problems or major shipping damage. So it's a really high quality touchscreen that's on the unit. As I mentioned earlier, it is dual receive. It can crossband repeat. It has APRS built in. All of our radios are going to continue to have these features built into them. FT2DR. I like to point out some of the differences between the 1 and the 2 for anybody that's thinking about getting into Fusion. And if you want a full rich experience, the 2 gives you a little bit more. It has dual vocoders in it. The FTM400 and the FT1 only has a single vocoder. That means only the AVFO can operate digital. If you're really getting into digital, the FT2 has dual vocoders in it. If you're using our MH85A11U camera microphone, which is a native microphone that plugs into the radio, it is proprietary to Yaesu, but it allows you to snap VGA-sized images, 320 by 480, and send them to other Yaesu radios. The FTM400 will display a preview of the picture you take on screen, and it will display the picture that you receive. The FT1DR and the FTM100 will not. So you actually have the FT2DR's nice dot matrix touchscreen will actually show you a preview of the image as well as a preview of the image coming in. So and it's pretty high resolution. If you come by the booth, we can show you some of the images on the radio, and the color, the toning, and the grayscaling on the dot matrix display is actually pretty darn nice. So you can see a nice view of the image. Once again, it is touchscreen, really easy to navigate. It's one of our easier radios to navigate. Someone just getting into a radio or a new ham, this is actually a pretty good radio for them because everything is written in plain English on it. If you've ran your FT60s, which everybody knows, that's a solid radio. Programming some of those radios by hand, it takes a little bit of trickery. You have to learn that menu system because everything's abbreviated. You know, you have ARS for automatic repeater shift in there. To a new ham, he looks at it and says ARS, you know, what's that? Well, when it actually says automatic repeater shift on the screen, you have more of an idea of what's going on. So everything's in plain English, a lot less abbreviations through the menuing system. It's all touchscreen, it's icon-based. Somebody that's been running an Android phone can pick it up pretty easy. 100, once again, single receiver. I'd like to point that out. A lot of people have bought these radios and come to me at the booth and said, well, I thought this was dual receive, and no, it's not, it's dual watch. The difference between dual receive and dual watch is actually scanning on the same VFO. It's just switching between two basically different memory channels. The VFOs almost act like memory channels. So there is a VFO A and B, which gets kind of confusing about this radio, but if you want to listen to both of them at the same time, you're going to have about a quarter-second delay in between those two bands when you're in dual watch mode. Some of you may remember the very first little Woksun radios had dual watch features on them. It was the same way, except they scanned back and forth. It was about a second a time that it had to do that to scan back and forth. So same concept in these radios. You can't see them too well down here, but a new thing that we're doing on our radios is we have these nice little LED indicators that let you know what mode you're transmitting in and what mode you're receiving in. I put one of these in my truck. The LEDs are really, really bright, even in the California sunlight out on the freeway. Midday, you can see them very well. At night, they work really great. I wouldn't even have to look at the radio display. I can tell what kind of mode I have coming in, what kind of mode I have going out. So I always know what I'm transmitting in or what I'm receiving in. They'll turn blue for digital, green for receive digital, or excuse me, blue for receive digital, green for receive analog, blue for transmit digital, and then red for transmit analog. So they are multicolored LEDs. The 991 was released just after Hamcation. We didn't get that one out during Hamcation last year. I really would have liked to have had it. We had our head engineer had it sitting on his desk, and they were running it through tests. They hadn't quite got done with everything yet. It would have been really nice to premiere it here. As I mentioned, it is the best, I believe, the best 2-meter single sideband receiver on the market right now. I run one at home. I run it by several other of our competitors' products. That I've got all kinds of radios laying around. It is crystal clear. The DSP in it is just absolutely amazing. We're using the same 32-bit DSP chip that we use in some of our bigger radios such as the FTDX 3000 and 5000. It's the same series of chips as Texas Instruments. So it's a really, really good DSP chip that we threw in there. It's IF DSP. The 857 and 897 and 817 have AF DSP in it, which is audio processing after the IF stage of the radio. And it really cleans up the signal a lot to have that IF DSP in there, and especially to have that 32-bit processor just makes a world of difference. So I've never been a fan of audio filtering. I've always liked to do it at the LO level, so this is really, really nice. It does have C4FM digital and analog built into it. So AMS works with this radio. Our AMS mode we'll talk about a little bit later. It's 100 watts on sideband, 50 watts on VHF and UHF. It is all mode, all band. The only band that it does not have is 1 1/4, 220 megahertz. It has a built-in antenna tuner, and one of the more fascinating features about this radio is out of a single USB port, you have 2 virtual serial ports and audio in and audio out. So if you're running applications like Ham Radio Deluxe, we actually just sent one of these radios to Rick at HRD, and they're working on making the software even better. Their digital master software, their rig control for this specific unit is going to be a little bit more accurate. They have some bugs they're working out. So this is a great radio for working digital modes, and some of the software manufacturers are actually going to be working with us to make stuff work a little bit better. Our FTDX 3000 has the same built-in interface, so we're starting to put this digital sound interface in some of our higher-end radios, which is really nice. This means a lot for remote rig control as well. Applications like HRD can, if there was anybody in here for the HRD presentation, do we have anybody here? Okay, so you saw the remote rig control that Rick has implemented into HRD. It works really, really well with this radio. I mean, fascinatingly well. Not only that, you get 2 virtual serial ports out of it, so you can actually run 2 simultaneous rig control applications if you have a logbook running and you're VNCing in, or just running Ham Radio Deluxe by connecting using the remote rig features. Whichever way you decide to go, you have a lot of versatility in this unit. It's one of the more fascinating ones on the market. I've been really happy that Yaesu put the sound card interface unit into this this unit. I call it a ham shack in a box. For a new ham, you have everything there that you need. You have a tuner, you have a sound card interface, you've got 100 watts on HF, 50 watts on VHF, UHF. It's not a bad deal at all for the price. If you look at buying all the individual components and setting everything up, it starts becoming comparable. Moving on a little bit, the DR1X repeater. We have, like I mentioned, there are several thousand in the United States right now. And this is a dual band repeater, meaning it could be either VHF or UHF, not both at the same time. It'll do either or. It will also unidirectionally crossband. It won't bidirectionally crossband like an FT8800 or some of your mobile rigs, but if you have one of these things set up as a remote receiver site, you can transmit on one frequency and receive on the other band. Transmit on one band, receive on the other, or vice versa. But you can't go all the way around like a standard mobile radio. The DR1's been a big hit. Here in Florida, there are about 200 repeaters just in the state of Florida alone that are actually active and on the air that I've gotten emails from, and I ran that data last night. It was somewhere around 212 in the state of Florida that had reported back in that the repeaters are on the air and they're running in automatic mode select mode. So I forgot to mute that, excuse me. That is my booth mate probably wondering where I'm at, even though I'm on the schedule. All right. Talk a little bit about firmware for repeater owners. The new latest versions of firmware, 1.0M and 1.0T. You need to install on our website, yaesu.com, under the DR1X page. There's a files section where you can go download this firmware, and depending on the version of firmware that you're running, you either want to run M or T. If you're running, there it goes again. If you're running version 1.0F, you want to be running M. If you're running version 1.0B or later, 1.0Z, you want to be running the T version. The only difference between them is one is wideband, one is narrowband, and adds certain features. So it's the process of how we're upgrading the repeater and upgrading the different modules. Depends on which version you're going to install and run. We added 4 new features. Narrowband operations, squelch hysteresis, which is if you have people picket fencing a lot on the older DR1Xs, it fixes that problem. That's adjustable. CWID without tones, meaning if you're running DCS or CTCSS, a PL tone, you can strip the PL tone when it IDs. And you have an adjustable squelch tail now. A lot of people complained about the squelch tail length on the repeater. We adjusted it several different times in the back-end firmware, and people still weren't happy with it, so we shortened it up and lengthened it up, and now you can just turn it off and take it all the way up to, I believe 10 seconds is the maximum hang time you can throw onto the squelch tail. So it's highly configurable now. If you're running an external controller, that makes a lot of difference.
How does that affect the timeout timer?
The squelch tail? It doesn't affect it at all. I mean, if you're running 10 seconds and you have people continuously keying up, then it'll eventually time out on you. Yeah. Okay. Let me make sure I've got the right thing on here. Okay. I got an AMS slide later, so I just reworked this presentation. Need to make sure I'm going in sync with it here. I might have to skip my AMS slide later. System Fusion was designed to integrate analog and digital. What I saw in Joplin, Missouri, I put up a D-Star repeater up about 1,000 feet up on a tower. With a buddy of mine, we had a VHF, UHF. I mean, we had the whole stack of D-Star. And immediately, the local club started complaining to us. A lot of club members were complaining to us that, oh, this is an amateur radio, we don't like it, you're using up repeater pairs. We actually caught a lot of flack. I had the repeater up for about 2 years. It got keyed down maybe a total of 300 times. We actually had a counter on it, and it just never got keyed down. The only people that would use it were me and Brian Odell in 0ZSG, and nobody really bought any D-Star hardware. They didn't want to go out and buy a digital-only radio. I mean, it kind of sucks to say that we're using up these resources. We don't have a lot of them in amateur radio, and that's why Yaesu came up with the idea for System Fusion. We have a limited amount of spectrum, a limited amount of repeater pairs. There is some narrow banding going on that's opening up a lot more frequencies for use in the repeater communities. But we're a little bit far off from the analog side going that way. So we have some digital stuff that's being allocated now, and all the digital stuff's going that way. And we're starting to see some fusion go analog narrow and narrow FM as well. So that's becoming more and more popular. All of our radios can do analog or digital. They can automatically, like I said, swap between the modes. The repeater has the capability of changing modes as well. It also has the capability of converting digital to analog. And analog to digital. So the repeater can make things even more compatible with use of an external controller. We could change the mode of the repeater and transmit into it digitally and have it come out analog FM. And there's a lot of benefits to that. Typically, where you're down in the noise floor and you're having a hard time hearing somebody, on our digital narrow mode, you can actually get in and penetrate and have a very, very good clean signal come into the repeater and be broadcast out to analog stations. So there's a lot of situations where that really helps out. I recommend that people, when they're leaving their repeaters idle, if you're using an external controller, to actually run it in automatic receive mode and fix it to FM output. And you have 2 logic signals in the back of the repeater that you can use an external controller with to change those modes. You can do that via DTMF. There's some cheap DTMF boards out there starting at about $30. There's stuff like the NHRC Micro that run about $100 that you can have even more advanced DTMF control and macros with. One thing that I like about macros is you can fix the repeater into automatic FM and into automatic select mode and force it to either digital or analog output while it's idle. And you could run the macro, run a macro to expire in 10 minutes. Let's say of no usage on the repeater, we don't receive COR for 10 minutes. Have that macro reset back into a state where the repeater's in auto mode or fixed digital mode or whatever you want to leave it in. So there's a little bit of versatility there with some of the more pricey controllers. Some of the ones like the SCOMs that have CTCSS decoders in them, PL decoders and encoders in them, you can actually run macros based on PL tones. So that's kind of interesting. And I haven't played with that too much, but I have a lot of customers that are setting up these really advanced macros with the repeater to just transmit into it with a certain PL tone and have it change the mode of the repeater. So true compatibility between both analog and digital. A few of the focuses on digital that Yaesu wanted to make known to the community is it is an independent digital system. It does not require internet. We do have wires if you want to use it, but it's not required. Our firmware is upgradable. Lots of manufacturers do have firmware upgrades now. We fully support it under warranty period. You break the radio, we'll take care of it. It's not at your own risk, so that's something we take care of. The cost. When we decided to go FDMA, we went C4FM FDMA because we can get these radios out to you they're starting at around the $300 range. And we saw at one point the FT1DRs out there for about $260. So it's a lot cheaper to go out and buy a brand new radio with a brand new battery than it is to even go buy some of the used commercial equipment like Moto Turbo and NextEdge and so forth. So the cost was a factor. Resource management. We have streaming data that goes along with our voice, which is your telemetry information, text messaging. Everything's streamlined in the transmission. It's not a data burst at the end of a transmission or a separate data burst that the radio is sending out. For emergency communications, that's great because if somebody does lose power while they're transmitting, falls out of range, something happens, you still have their telemetry information from their previous transmission. We have data transmissions such as image and texting that I've talked about a little bit with the MH85 microphone. So these are just a few of the reasons that we decided to go with this technology. Not only did we develop the technology, we developed a standard. On our website, you can actually download a copy of our digital standards, which tells you how to encode and decode our data packets. So you can build your own System Fusion hardware. We're inviting other people to develop on this platform. We're not being secretive about it whatsoever. FDMA also has better bit error rate characteristics. Yes, sir?
Question, will the vocoder and or any of the support for the AMD vocoder that you guys are using be publicly available to, again, do the sort of decoding and building of your own stuff? The information on the packets, the framing of the packets and everything is available online, but we can't release DVSI's intellectual property, so you'd have to actually go to DVSI to get that. Now, there's some open source projects out there like OP25 that people are using to encode and decode digital data with right now. But once again, we start getting into the realm where someone's reverse engineered DVSI's hardware and software, and you can use it, but there are some legal ramifications to that. I don't ever foresee DVSI coming after someone, but you never know. It depends on how big you make it. The bit error rate is much better than GMSK and some of the other solutions that are available out there. In our digital narrow mode, we're actually sending more forward error correction than you would find in a typical P25 packet, quite a bit more. So we're finding that we're actually seeing, typically when you can't hear the analog FM signal, or where it becomes very difficult to hear. And you've got a lot of white noise in there that the C4FM, the Yaesu System Fusion signal is actually breaking through, and you're getting a nice crystal clear digital signal out of it. Some people have said a 10 dB increase. I don't believe that. There's a couple people moving around the United States right now that are giving these same presentations. I'd be lucky if I'd say we'd see a 1.5 dB increase, but I am seeing a range increase. We have a demonstration we can do at the booth where we take two radios out, we throw dummy loads on them, we have people walk far enough away from each other that they can barely hear each other on the radios, where the audio starts just dropping into the floor. We switch over to digital narrow, and we have a crystal clear signal. So that's there might be a tiny bit of artifacting in there, but it's definitely 100 times better than what you're listening to. AMS, going into that once again, it is digital coexistence. I talked a little bit about it. AMS works both on the repeaters and on the radios and in the wires system.
So the wire system will convert analog to digital and digital to analog. The repeater will do the same. The repeater's receiver and transmitter will automatically adjust. If you have it set to AMS mode, will automatically adjust to transmit whatever it receives, unless you, like I mentioned earlier, set the logic signals on the back of the repeater or manually fix the repeater into a mode. The radio will switch between modes depending on whatever it receives. If you're in AMS mode on your radio, you get an analog signal, it's going to start receiving analog. You get digital, it's going to receive digital. When you key back down on whatever respective signal you're receiving, it's going to transmit back to that station using the mode that you received on. That is configurable in the radio. You can have it go back to digital mode, or if you're in FM mode, you can have it revert back to FM rather than transmit on that mode. That's the mode that I prefer to keep it in. And with 2 presses of the radio key, 2 quick presses, you can actually switch the mode of the radio. So there's no need to actually reach down and have to switch a channel or pull the radio off your side and reconfigure the mode the radio's in. Makes it extremely easy to use. So this is a amateur technology. We would never see this in public safety. In public safety, such as EMS and law enforcement, when the radio's keyed, it has to communicate. In this case, there is a chance for operator error, but no matter what, you're going to get back out to the station that's talking to you. So there's reasons we did this. Is we're really not keyed towards public safety. You know, this is amateur radio, and we like to be able to talk to people really easy. I mean, the harder we make it, the less people we see on it. It's the reason that DMR it's taking off. It's a great idea. The network's great. It does some really cool stuff. The call routing, I think, is phenomenal in DMR, but it's relatively hard to use. It's a learning curve. It's kind of away from amateur radio. The radios are hard to program. That's not the case with Yaesu. All this stuff works out of the box. You buy a Yaesu radio, you want to get on digital, as soon as you start up the radio, it asks you for your call sign, you put your call sign in, you tune to your frequency. If it's on a standard repeater shift and you're on a repeater, you just key down and go. There's nothing else to put into the radio. There's no your call, my calls, none of that complex stuff. So it's all simplistic and all easy to use. We have 4 different modes. We have our VD mode, or voice data mode, which is known as digital narrow. It actually splits up our data stream half into voice, half into digital data. If you're not transmitting digital data at that time, it uses the rest of it for forward error correction. We have voice full rate mode, which is no forward error correction. It is full 9600 bits per second of voice, very high fidelity, lots more voice response in it. We have our data full rate mode, which once again, 9600 bits per second, no forward error correction for data transfer. And then we have standard analog FM mode. So the radio can go into 4 different modes. The repeater also supports all 4 of those modes. You can transmit your text messages and your digital data and your wires X data over the repeater as well. Slight comparison. Like I said, I am not in one bit. This is a very fair comparison to D-Star. I believe D-Star is a great technology as well. I tell everybody embrace all the amateur technology. So we do have a little bit more throughput, as you can see. With Yaesu System Fusion, as opposed to 4800 bits per second, we're just about double at 9600 bits per second. We use a little bit newer of a vocoder. The D-Star radios still use the AMBI 2020 vocoders, and I believe to see ICOM hopefully step up a little bit on some of this stuff, because we found through some of our other partners we've worked with that are developing digital technologies, going to the newer vocoders actually significantly helps out the D-Stars, the way that they use their signaling, the way they encode and decode their data. So I'm hoping they step up a little bit to the AMBI Plus 2 or AMBI 3000 vocoder. We do have a built-in GPS in all of our radios, less than 991, which does have external GPS capability. Any 4800 baud NEMA GPS will work on it. They are not additional options. You don't have to buy any other modules. They're built into the radios. APRS is in all of our Fusion radios. There's no additional boards or accessories to buy. Now here's one that I don't like, but there are reasons for this. We're seeing 4800 bits per second on a 6.25 kilohertz wide signal. I was reading online, this is what ICOM specs out, so that's what I want to say based on the specifications on their website. I heard it's around 10 kilohertz. You know, I keep hearing that, so I haven't actually set a D-Star radio down on the service monitor to see, but that's what I'm told. We are consuming 12.5 or 25 kilohertz worth of bandwidth, depending on what mode you set the repeater in. You're still going to get 9,600 bits per second out of the system. And of course, analog coexistence. D-Star is D-Star only. The D-Star infrastructure is D-Star. It will be D-Star. It will never be anything else. Usable data speed in our digital narrow mode is 4,800 bits per second, along with voice. So you're going to get 4,800 bits per second of voice and the rest forward error correction if you're just running voice in digital narrow mode. And that's where we're seeing some of the advantages of range with System Fusion. We are using 4-level FSK, which is about 10 to 15 year newer technology than GMSK, which is what D-Star is using. And GMSK we've seen rolled out in Europe about widespread in two-way radio and public safety was being used about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. So it is an older technology. 4-level FSK is the same technology that P25 radio uses right now that's in the APCO standards. Our protocol or encoding and decoding of our data is just a little bit off from P25. That's why we're getting that good high-fidelity audio in there. One really advantageous thing for repeater owners, and this is regarding the new firmware for the repeaters and the new firmware for the HRI 200 and WiresX software. You do not need internet at your tower site anymore. For other technologies, DMR, whatever you may be running, you have to have internet right at your tower site. With System Fusion, you can actually run an FTM 100 or 400 as a remote link. Just like we've done with IRLP and Echolink for years. You set the link radio at your home and just point it to the repeater's frequency, and you can run WiresX through it, either analog or digital. And it'll pass those signals, which is a really neat feature in WiresX. We do have built-in cameras. You know, you can actually get the MH85 A11U as an accessory, and it has a built-in camera in that microphone. It connects right to the radio. It is proprietary. Myself, and I would want to mention this to be fair to ICOM, I like taking pictures on your phone and transmitting them, or through your Android device and transmitting them through the radios. So we're looking at digital connectivity right now to the radios. You know, we're looking at the next generation. How are we going to connect our PDAs and our laptops to these radios to be able to transmit data? So that's in the cooker right now at Yaesu Engineering. You can text right off the keypad and touchscreen.
How far out do you think that is?
I think it's within the next 2 years that they're going to have it, you know, perfected. We might be testing something significantly before then. So we've gotten a lot of requests for it, and there's so many people have asked for it that they're pushing it right through. That's something they've developed. They've devoted a lot of resources to. So we do have some touchscreen radios and texting via keypad on the FT2DR and FTM400. The FTM400, you have direct entry. The FT2DR, because it's a little bit smaller of a screen, we use T9 text input. If you remember texting on your old cell phone, same thing, it's dictionary based. And we have touchscreen capabilities on three of our radios currently: the FTM400, FT2DR, and FT991. ICOM does have that as well. I don't know how good the interfaces are. I don't have the 5100 or 7100. I've kind of tinkered around with them at the stores, but you know, the color touchscreen, the 65K screen, is definitely a nice feature. So we do have the full color LCD on both the 991 and on the FTM400. Now the 991 won't decode your picture messages yet. There's no internal storage on it, so it won't receive pictures. That's one limitation of the FT991. A few of the features that are really really neat about Fusion, I just talk about a few of them before I go into my Q&A here, is there are some MCOM related features that I really like. And I've been trying to push these products out to emergency communications a little bit more because these are really nice features. The first one I'm going to talk about is Digital Group Monitor, which actually allows you to monitor the status of a group of people. It allows you to monitor how far away they are from a repeater site or from a radio via RSSI, so received signal strength indication. That's how much signal to bit error rate you have, how good of a signal you have coming in. If you have resources out in the field and you want to know if they're getting too far away from you or they're going to fall out of communications range. You can monitor that. You can also save their locations as they're transmitting. So we can save a location and we can track it down. As it's called the smart navigation function. You can load their GPS position into your radio. You get a compass, it gives you a heading. It tells you how to find that person. We have a backtrack function. You have a command post. People are starting out the command post. They can save their GPS location in the radio and use the compass to navigate back to their previous location. So we have a tool for locating resources, and we have a tool for getting resources back. So if somebody does fall out of range. For net control station, using group monitor, you know, if somebody is getting out of range, you can tell them to load their location into backtrack. Save it in there. They have two spots where they can save it in. They can have the command post and they can have the spot where they lost range, so they know where to go back to get back into range again. So two pretty powerful features. The group monitor function does pull the radios about every 30 seconds. So even if they're not transmitting, they're walking further away, it's going to send a signal out to the radio and say, hey, ping back to me and let me know where you're at. And it's going to give them a signal strength back to the net control station. As I mentioned before, every radio does have a full suite of APRS features. They work really great. They're solid. It's the same features we've had in the radio since the VX8. Lots of people love them. Built in, just a kind of a freebie we threw in there. Going more into Wires X, for the repeater owners out there. Go ahead and get over here. And the DR1X internet linking, and repeater owners, this is such a small screen you can't see this too well. I will send this to you. Wires X connection through remote is what we recommend. Remotely linking using a node radio. One of the reasons is if you hook up an HRI 200 to your DR1X repeater, it is going to disable the external 15-pin accessory port. So you have to choose, do you want to use an external controller or do you want to use Wires X? That's option number 2. So we have a few different reasons here why we don't recommend option 2, which is connecting the HRI 200 directly to the back of the repeater. And that is, it does require high-speed internet at the repeater site. During some of our studies from repeater owners and going out and talking to everybody, commercial internet's getting pretty expensive. Some people have gotten away with getting personal internet at their tower sites, and the phone companies and the cable companies are really getting keen on that, and they're starting to charge commercial rates at a tower site, so that's getting a little bit pricey. Requires a PC be powered on all the time. If we have a problem with the PC, we got to go out to the tower site. If you're on a mountain location, that really sucks. And you cannot operate with an external controller, as I mentioned before. A lot of people want to keep the external controller. Now, one thing I've been seeing recently is guys just taking the node and setting it right at the tower site. That's also an option you have as well. So you take your FTM 100 or 400, your HRI 200, you set it out at the tower site, you can still have your external controller connected. AMS is not available over Wires X. It will translate between analog and digital depending on what nodes are connected, but I have to push that pretty hard as AMS isn't working on it right now. We don't know what the future of that's going to be. It might be new hardware, it might be new software. We know the engineers are working on it right now, but that automatic mode select doesn't work. That doesn't mean that it doesn't still work on the repeater. Even though you're connected to Wires X, AMS will still work if you have the repeater in AMS mode. It's just you have to choose which one you want to transport over the Wires X network. Do I want to transport analog or do I want to transport digital? So you have to make that choice, which one you want to go over the network. If you do want to connect your repeater to directly to an HRI 200 and you have an older one that does not have version 1.10 of firmware on it, right now you have to call our customer service department and have the repeater actually send in for service. We do have some cables that may be becoming available, but I have to warn any of the repeater owners in here, you do have to disassemble some components in the repeater, and there's a likelihood that something may get messed up. So we recommend that you send them in. We'll perform the upgrade free of charge. System Fusion web portal, systemfusion.yaesu.com. I built this website with one of our partners, and we worked on it for about 6 months. It's a really nice interactive website. We're putting a lot of content on it. We're building it up right now. Anybody who would like an email to him, you can leave a card or email address with me, and I'll send you our little flyer on the System Fusion website. We're going to be putting some presentations up there. We already got social media interaction. You'll notice that we're on a lot of Yahoo forums. We're on a lot of stuff on Facebook. We post stuff to this site, post it to Facebook as well, to Twitter, to here, to there. So it's kind of a centralized resource for the content that we're posting out there. There's an FAQ system that has a lot of common answers to some of the problems that we've seen with System Fusion, or some of the confusion people might have had with the system. Those questions can be answered there. It's a great website. It scared the crap out of me the other day. Somebody called me up and told me it was hacked. Turned out he didn't know it's head from a hole in the ground. But that being said, on the System Fusion site, that's the last thing that I have to say. I'll take any questions, answers about anything Yaesu that anybody has from our HF product line all the way up to System Fusion. If you have any questions, just raise your hand now. I'll get to you.
What about
Yes, sir.
the, oh, go ahead.
I have 991, and will it operate C4 FM on HF?
It will, but I wouldn't recommend running it on anything below 10 meter. We have guys running it on 10 and 6. And I can't answer for the FCC or any of the emissions regulations on that, but it has been argued, and this was a lengthy argument. I have about 300 or 400 emails with people arguing back and forth on this. They say it's fine. The guys on D-Star have been doing it for a while. Nobody's been complaining, and as I mentioned before, we're seeing about 10K worth of bandwidth, that we consume. So we're 12 and a half.
No wider than they am.
What's that?
We're no wider than they am.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, so, it's...
And second last question.
It
I
works.
also have the 400 and the FT1XD, just got the wires box. I understand that the wires box will not work on my 991, have to use the 400?
Yeah, it works on it'll work analog only, and I don't know if that's going to change in the future. I asked a question about a month ago. I haven't gotten a response yet, and I said, well, there's this integrated sound card built into the 991. Is there any future to that? And there might be. There might be something to that. There's a reason they left that out, and I'm not sure. They did come back to me once and say, well, we didn't intend the 991 to be used as a high-priced Wires X station, so but the price has come down to the 100. Yes, sir.
What about the overheat problem when you're running high power on the repeater? When you're running high power,
It's
long
absolutely
conversations.
It's absolutely environmentally dependent. When we started researching it, we couldn't make heads or tails of it because I started flying out to repeater sites. I spent about 3 months just traveling around, looking at these environments these repeaters were in that were failing over and over again. And we found in a lot of situations that they weren't a preferable environment. These repeaters do require air conditioning. They require some type of environmental control. And it's fine to run them on high power as long as you have your conditions right. But
Well, we're in air conditioning. What about adding another fan and a cooling fan?
I can't recommend it because of the warranty. But if you want to do anything to cool it more, I mean that's never a bad idea. Yeah. Yes, sir.
We had one fail on high power also, so we just put an external amp on and are running the Fusion at 5 watts to drive the external amp. Not the ideal way to go, but it solved our problem. We're in an air-conditioned environment also.
That's what we're doing
Yeah.
on our UHF machine.
I've had some guys in some pretty harsh environments run them on 25 watts with no problem. I make the recommendation of 25 watts. Eventually, we just had to come out and say, okay, well, we'd sold so many of them, and unfortunately, my employer said, well, we're not going to release the exact amount that we've sold right now. And people come to me and say, well, so many people are talking about it. And I say, yeah, but not really that many. And I can't wait to the day that we can actually throw that number out there because it's huge. The amount of repeaters we have and the amount of failures versus the amount of repeaters we've sold and we haven't received is very, very low. Well under the threshold of 3% that we like to see in manufacturing. So, but it's...
We have 2 repeaters. We never did try to run them at full power. We put them on at medium power with a $120 amp, and we're getting 140 watts out. It's been running beautiful. One's been running for 2 years, and the other's been running for a year.
And you can grab a nice TPL amp off of eBay or someplace used for $200-300, and it's it's going to be 100 continuous duty. Yeah, the RXRF amplifiers are. I've never paid over $300 for one, but yes, sir, back there. I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, is it true that the Secure America was set up by Yaesu in Japan? And if so, is Yaesu aware that it's not working?
Yeah, we're aware of what's going on, but what we have to do is isolate what everybody's running as far as hardware first. So the idea is to get everything stabilized with what we have, and then go back and say this is the way that it has to be ran. So I'm waiting for them to come back and tell me exactly how they want to have stuff configured. Then we'll be releasing a bulletin out to all the repeater owners, all the node operators, and recommend a certain type of configuration to get everything working. Because we understand there is some digital and analog noise. We've contacted a few people that have been in the America Link and a few of the other places and found out that their repeaters weren't set into Wires X mode, that they were running other types of hardware, stuff like that. So we have to pretty much isolate every little thing to get them to do anything, and that's what we're working on right now.
Those new GPS units use less current? Are they more efficient?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I have not asked on that one. A couple of people have asked the question, but I haven't had a chance to really communicate with them. I've been trying to get stuff like this gentleman in the back mentioned about the CQ America room. We're trying to work on that stuff right now inside of Wires and figure out what's going on. Anyone else? Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, I know the first version of the mobiles and portables you had would, you mentioned the AMS and the different modes and whatnot. I know when you released, I guess, a firmware update a while back on the original 1 and the original 400, that would allow it to stay in fixed digital mode transmit, but it would receive FM only. It's like a fixed mode.
Right, there's 3 different modes you can set on it right now. You can fix it, have it automatically swap over, or have it stay. So,
right,
yeah.
but it wasn't like, because before I did that upgrade, it was digital only,
Right.
analog only, or the AMS, which it meant you could transmit in digital, but as soon as the repeater came back in analog mode, it would switch it to analog mode.
Yeah, we changed that real quick.
Right, so the
yeah.
question is the new X versions that you have, does it also have that mode?
Yes, yeah, it works the same way as the new firmware that we have released. They're the exact same radios, just the GPS
I haven't
module.
actually played with one, but some users said that, oh, it doesn't do that. It has got the new version.
Same
I haven't
firmware.
actually messed with it. I wasn't sure if they had broke that feature or not.
No, we load the same firmware on it. Yeah, there's no hardware changes to the radio, no firmware changes at all. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
A couple comments. You mentioned the FT1 XDR, the only difference was GPS. I thought it had a bigger battery.
It does have a bigger battery, thank you. Yeah, and we started doing that. So yeah, there's a bigger battery on it as well. And it has the alligator style clip on it, which clips on your belt a lot better.
And
That's available for purchase as an accessory to the FT1 too.
Okay. Forward air correction was my understanding that in VW mode, there's still forward air correction coming out of the ambient encoder, so that forward air correction is still there, and DN mode, you just add another layer of
Yeah, it's not consuming any of the usable
Go
bandwidth.
ahead. Right.
Yeah. So we're speaking
But there is
more
still
along.
some there.
There still is some there, yeah.
Okay.
But that's in the you're right, that's in the vocoder. So we don't typically mention that. It gets a little bit more complex for people. You had another question, sir?
Yeah, are you aware about the lockups on the nodes and also the repeaters after the upgrade?
Yeah, the latest firmware they released last night. I'm supposed to fix some of that. So load that firmware there. They came back to me and said